Welcome to CWC Podcast, where leadership, culture and real-life lessons collide. I'm Chris Campbell, a former military leader turned business mentor and business project manager. I'm here to share stories, strategies and simple tools that'll help gain your edge. No fluff, no jargon, just practical conversations to help you grow. Let's dive straight in. Welcome back to CWC Edge Podcast, where we talk leadership, management and real-life challenges that come with both. First of all, I must apologise. I've got a little bit of a sniffle. It's not going to kill me, but I really need to push on and try and get this recorded. Now, today's episode is a little bit different. It's not just leadership in business or lessons from the military or even strategies you can put into practice tomorrow. It's personal. It's real. And honestly, it's been sitting with me since, I think it was Tuesday night when I attended Aidy Harper's webinar, and it was entitled From Drained to Driven. Now, if you don't know Aidy Harper, he runs incredible sessions on performance, resilience, mindset, and even hypnotherapy. But this one in particular, it hit me hard. It forced me to stop and look at some of my own battles. Not just the ones I faced when I was in uniform or in the corporate world, but the ones I face every single day in my very own home. And here's the strange thing. As I sat there reflecting after the webinar and again the next day, it struck me that I've often felt calmer in the middle of combat operations than I have on a normal Tuesday evening trying to get the kids out the door for swimming. Sounds insane, right? But maybe you felt something similar. Maybe this will resonate. Maybe you've asked yourself, why is it that in most high pressure, life or death environments, I could stay calm, I could have stayed focused and composed. But in normal day-to-day, especially if you've got a family life, I can lose it over something as small as shoes not being put on at the right time, or breakfast, or a tit-for-tat tantrum that's happened. That's what I want to dig into today, why combat or very high-pressure environments can feel strangely calming, why parenting and family life can feel more chaotic than war, and most importantly, how we can adapt, how we can bring the same tools, the same discipline and clarity that we used to use in combat or high-stressful situations into our very own homes, into our families, and yes, into our personal lives. So buckle up. This is it's going to be raw, it's going to be honest, and hopefully very, very useful to most of you listening. Not just for those from a military background, may I add, but for anyone who's ever felt more stressed at home than they do in their normal daily work. So let's start here. The idea that chaos can actually feel calm. Crazy. I know it sounds backwards, but if you've ever been in a combat zone or been shot at, or been in a risky situation, or even in a high pressure professional environment, emergency services, or a high stakes surgeon conducting surgery, or high stakes negotiations, you will know exactly what I mean. There's this moment when the pressure is at its highest, and instead of panicking, everything kind of slows down. You're hyper aware, but you're calm, you're focused, you're in control. I'll never forget one particular operation I was part of. We were dealing with a suspected IED, and the stakes, they couldn't have been higher. But here's the thing, my heart rate, it wasn't spiking out of control. My head was clear. Why? Because there was structure. We had a process when we were dealing with removing IEDs from the battlefield. We would, in simple terms, assess the situation. We would communicate clearly with each other, and we would execute with absolute precision that mission. No wasted energy, no unnecessary distractions. Everyone knew their role and everyone trusted each other. Sometimes it went wrong, but more times out of not, it worked. Now let's flip it. Let's go to a Tuesday evening. For me, the scene, if I can paint it for you, one of my 3 children can't find their shoes before we're about to go out for a swimming lesson. The other one suddenly hates the snack that they picked out of the snack bag about 10 minutes previous, and whinges that they want a different one. One of them could be potentially crying, no clue why. Probably they were upsetting each other. The dog's barking because he's getting excited because somebody's walking past the window, and we're already within that 5-minute window of when we need to be going. And suddenly, my heart rate spikes higher, so much higher than it ever did in combat. My patience just goes. My calm disappears. I never lose my rag with my children because that would be absolutely wrong. But my calmness, my sense of purpose being there in that moment just disappears. Why? Because unlike combat, in my house especially, and it's probably in your houses as well, there's no system. There's no mission brief. There's no defined structure. There's no, well, there should be hierarchy, but that's a different question. There's no real hierarchy. Priorities shift every single second, and emotions are running wild, left, right, and center. That's the key difference here. Combat stress is external. Parenting stress is personal, and that makes all of the difference. So here's the thing. In the military or the emergency services, even in corporate high-pressure environments, leadership is semi-structured or structured. Orders will flow down. Teams will execute the orders. There's a chain of command potentially or a hierarchy. The defined goals, the clear objectives, shared understanding of what you need to get after. And when you're in that environment, people like me thrive. It feels harsh, but it's absolutely simple. At home, that is a completely different battlefield. A completely different battlefield. There's no rank structure. There's no chain of command. The kids don't give a hoot about efficiency or anything that I'm talking about in regards to lean. They don't care about timelines. They don't care about when they go out the door. They don't even care if they're going to be late. They care about whatever random thing is consuming their little brains in that moment. And it could be, oh, Dad, look at this Lego man. And I am literally panicking inside thinking, will you just get in the car? And leadership at home, it's emotional, guys. It's not about barking orders at people, especially not your children. It's about navigating fears and moods and meltdowns and constant unpredictability. And the hardest part is it never ends. That mission of looking after your children, nor should you want it to end, but it never has an end point. In combat, you complete your mission, you regroup, you get back, you have tea and medals, and you reset, and you think about the next time you're going to go out on a patrol or go out to relieve somebody that's already out working. At home, there's no mission complete. There's just the next meal, the next change of clothes, the next change of shoes, the next tantrum, the next crisis. And that, to me, is draining. It chips away at you in ways that combat never did. Because combat pressure, it gave me closure. Parenting is relentless. I wouldn't change it for the world, don't get me wrong. But it's absolutely relentless. I know, and I know it's just not me. After Eddie's webinar the other night, I started reaching out to some friends and some listeners, and the stories I got back were incredible. One of my mates, a former Royal Marine, well, yeah, I would call him a former Royal Marine, he's just left. He told me he felt more control during an ambush in Afghanistan in 2012 than he did trying to take his 3-year-old daughter to swimming lessons. And he laughed, and I laughed, and when he said it, but there was truth in it. In the ambush, he knew exactly what to do. At the pool, he was just another dad like me, wrestling armbands, tantrums, completely out of his depth, goggles going everywhere, and it would never end. Another one, a friend of mine, a paramedic, told me that he could stay as ice cold in a high-speed trauma situation. Blood could be pouring, chaos could be happening, shouting, gurgling, people shouting at each other, people crying, all of it. And they were calm. They're always calm. But when he tries to get their kids dressed for school in the morning or tries to get them out of the bath to get them into bed, total meltdown, heart racing, sweating, and snapping at his wife and his kids. And I think it makes perfect sense because in those high-pressure jobs, you're trained. You've got a lot of training. You've drilled it. You've rehearsed worst-case scenarios. But parenting, no one gives you a manual. People have written books, but a load of nonsense if you ask me. There's no standard operating procedures or SOPs. There's no drills. It's just trial and error every single day. So let's go a bit deeper. Why does this actually happen? Why does the battlefield feel calmer than the breakfast table? It comes down to how our brains process stress. In combat or in any life-threatening environment, your body switches into that survival mode. Adrenaline spikes. Cortisol rises. Your senses sharpen. But here's the kicker. Your training kicks in. All those drills, the rehearsals, the standard operating procedures, the rock drills that you carry out, they give your brain a shortcut, a little script for it to follow. You don't waste energy deciding. You just do it. You just act. It's called automaticity. Your brain relies on what you've practiced. And because you've practiced it hundreds and hundreds of times, you feel a strange calm in the middle of that chaos. Now compare that with home life. Parenting doesn't come with a manual, folks. No one trains you for the 100 different emotional curveballs you're going to face in a single morning. Your child doesn't follow a script, even if you've written one out. And when things go wrong, your brain isn't running on an SOP. You haven't Rock drill this. It's scrambling, it's improvising, it's second guessing what's going to happen next. And then there's another layer, the emotional stakes. In combat, the threat is external. You don't take it personally, but when your kid melts down, when your partner snaps at you, when the household feels like it's falling apart, you feel it deep in your chest. It's not just stress, it's love mixed with frustration, mixed with fear of failure. That's why your heart rate spikes. That's why you shout even though you promised yourself you wouldn't every single day. That's why parenting can feel harder than combat, because the enemy is not out there. It's inside. And this is where I circle back to Edie Harper's webinar, From Drained to Driven. When I sat in that session, I didn't expect to be thinking about parenting or my own daily struggles. But Edie framed something that really struck with me. He talked about how much energy we waste when we're constantly in this reaction mode, this fighting fires instead of setting the ground rules for yourself. And that's exactly how I felt as a dad sometimes. In combat, I wasn't reacting. I was operating. At home, I was reacting to every single thing. Shoes missing, breakfast thrown, dog barking, and all by 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. I was drained. Edie challenged us to think about where our energy leaks are, and for me, that was the wake-up call. My biggest energy leak wasn't at work. It wasn't in leadership. It was at home with the people I care about most. That's when I started thinking, what if I brought some of that combat structure into my own morning routine? What if I applied mission planning, calm breathing, and resilience practices to parenting? And honestly, that shift has changed things for me a little. It's not perfect, not every day, but I'm getting better. All right, let's get practical then. What do we actually do with this? Well, here are some strategies I've been working on, and maybe they'll help you too. Treat the morning, if you are rigid and you spent 10, 20 years in the military, treat your morning like a military mission briefing. In combat, every mission starts with a clear brief. At home, same principle. Lay out the timeline, the rules, the objectives. This sounds bizarre, people, but sometimes it can work for people. For example, you could say to the family, right, it's a team objective to be out the door by, 08:15 hours. Make sure we have breakfast complete by 07:45 hours. Make sure your uniforms are on by 0800 hours. Who's going to look after the backpacks this morning? Who's going to grab the water bottles from the fridge this morning? Give them it as a challenge. Frame it as a challenge. Kids love structure when it feels like a game. Reward them at the end of the week. Right, you got the bottles ready all week, on time. You're going to get a couple of pound pocket money. Whatever. Another thing you could do is tactical breathing. This one is gold. In combat, we used controlled breathing to slow the heart rate. 4 seconds, you'd hold the heart rate in, especially when we were doing combat shooting. And then 4 seconds out and you'd hold it. Next time your kid refuses to get dressed, just pause, walk away and breathe. Reset. It takes 10 seconds but can save you from a blow up. You have another thing called controlled detachment. When the enemy was shooting at British soldiers, myself included, it wasn't personal. Neither is your child's tantrum. It feels personal, of course, but it's not. It's just their brain struggling with their emotion. Don't meet fire with fire. Step back every once in a while. Observe it. Respond calmly. You could build SOPs for your home. We had standard operating procedures in the military, the police, in the fire brigade, and the ambulance service. Why not at home? For example, shoes always live in the same spot. Hang your coats up when you come in from school. Backpacks need to be taken off when you come through the door, and your homework taken out. Leave it on the bench. And pack your bags the night before to make sure you've got everything there for the morning. Breakfast options are limited to 2 choices. No debates at 7 a.m. in the morning in regards to what breakfast you're going to have. Small systems remove decision fatigue. You could conduct, this is going a little bit wild, but you can conduct after action reviews. One of the best tools in the military was debriefing. Use it at home after a chaotic morning. Sit down with your partner or even your kids and ask, what went wrong this morning? What went right? How do we make things smoother and better tomorrow? It doesn't have to be formal, just it could be reflective. You could reframe stress as a connection. Remember this, your kids will forget being late for school, but they'll remember how you made them feel. Every stressful moment is an opportunity to connect, to show patience, to model resilience. Now, am I perfect at this? Not even close, but I've seen real change when I apply some of those little lessons I've just talked about. Less shouting, more laughter. Mornings that actually feel like we're in it together, not at war with each other, or evenings. And I know I'm not alone in this. The stories I've shared from mates, from other parents, they're proof that this is universal. So here's my ask. If you've got a story, if you felt calmer in combat than in the school run, I want to hear it. drop me a message, share it with the podcast, and let's build a community of people who are figuring this out together. And I can't recommend you getting in touch with Eddie enough, because he will really lay down the simplistic terms of how to deal with this. Because the truth is, we can laugh about it now, but it's serious, guys. Burnout doesn't just happen at work, it happens at home. And if we don't get a grip on it, the people who pay the price are the ones we love the most. So let's swap our tools, let's swap stories and support each other. That's what leadership is about. Not just in uniform, but not just in business, but in life. So let's bring this home. Why does combat feel calmer than parenting? Because combat is structured, external, and finite. Parenting is personal, emotional, and relentless. But that doesn't mean we're powerless. We can take the best of what we learned in those high pressure environments and apply it to your family life. Structure, breathing, perspective, reflection. And I want to say this, especially to anyone listening who is struggling right now. You are not failing. If you've kept your cool under fire but lost your shit at home, that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. For me, Eddie Harper's webinar reminded me that energy is precious. And if I can stay calm in war but lose it in my kitchen, then maybe the work I need to do isn't out there. Maybe it's in here, at home, with my family. So that's my challenge to you. Take the tools you already have, the resilience you've already proven, and start applying it where it matters most. Not just in the field, not just in the office, but in the living room, at the breakfast table, and maybe even on the school run chaos. Because if we can learn to lead there, we can lead anywhere. Thanks for tuning in to CWC Age podcast. I would absolutely love to hear your stories, hear your thoughts, and your chaos. Reach out with me, connect with me, and let's keep learning together. Until next time, listen, take a breath, reset, and remember, the mission isn't just out there. It's right here at home. Keep your edge. Thanks for listening to CWC Age podcast. If today gave you something to think about, share it with your colleagues, share it with your friends, share it with your team, because growth is better when it's shared, people. For more insights, resources, and blogs, head over to cwcedge.com. Until next time, keep it simple, keep improving, and keep your edge.